What's up, everybody? We back. Hit that like button, subscribe, Focus Daily TV. Over the recent weeks, we've been discussing the Levitical laws and how, by disobeying the Levitical laws, we found ourselves in the clutches of the kings of Babylon. We're going to get a little bit more into that today, but now we're starting to go more in depth. We got a selection from 1 Samuel today that speaks about how the people demanding God to give them a king to rule over them rather than just having faith in the Lord and believing that he could lead the way, which led to our ideological subversion and the creation of the state that we find ourselves in today. Let's get to it. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 6. But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this pleased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done this from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly to let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." Now, as you continue to read that, the king will claim everything. But the first step of this creation of the state that we find ourselves in was the ideological subversion of God's children. Today, that's what we're going to get into, ideological subversion. Let's go. See what my sound like.
Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated.
Now, this video right here will point out ideological subversion and how it works and how it affects the people that it's applied upon.
In the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with
brought to us by Assyrian gods.
Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent.
Okay, listen to this closely. And by American, he means the natives of this land, the Afro-Americans, the true owners of this land, the land that was given to us as a birthright by the Father, the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
That despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first.
Now, all of this began just a few grandmothers ago. This wasn't in some ancient BC time. This all happened within the last 200 to 300 years, from the late 1700s to the early 1900s. The process began, and they began to subvert us against the laws and commandments of God, as the Bible predicted they would.
First one being demoralization. It takes from
Excuse me, as the Bible prophesied they would.
15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which
Let
requires
me bring it back
to
a little.
educate one generation. First one being it's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that?
See, the first thing they did was demoralize our minds, our thought processes, otherwise known as subversion. Because once you get control of the mind, the physical body will follow. And what they were doing was subverting us against the will of the Father, the laws and commandments of God, causing us as a people, not me individual, as us as black people, to be subverted and cursed, as Deuteronomy speaks of.
Many years, because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the...
This ain't preaching. This is teaching. So I know you may see me lighting this up and doing that, but this is not church. I'm presenting the truth, the spirit of truth, so that people can be redeemed and receive salvation. But as the Bible speaks and says, as the word says, it is the truth that shall make you free. So don't pay attention to what I'm doing, because this ain't about me. Pay attention to this information I'm presenting. Now go sit down in the back somewhere.
The ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov.
It was through the public school system, media, entertainment, even our parents, because they were subverted just as well as we was. The point is that this truth must be shown in order that we can rise up out of the subversion, in order that we can come from up under the water, the abmorality laws that we find ourselves placed up under.
And all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom.
Okay? And that kick in the fat bottom will be the returning of the laws. We have to rise up out of this demoralized state that we find ourselves in, that was created for us, so that our mind would be on negativity and evil at all times, as the Bible speaks of. These things were done to us purposely. It was a process that took place over many generations, yet we shall be free.
When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic.
Later, we'll get into the military construct that we find ourselves under. Right now, we're focusing on the mental effects that this subversion brought upon us that allowed us to sink to the point where we were able to be conquered. However, all of this was prophesied. That's why I say it's important that you open up your Bible when you're watching this Focus Daily Show. Get familiar with the laws and commandments, the truth, the word, and this show will make complete sense. I'm just presenting the truth so it can get out there, because God wants this truth to be known before he do his thing.
I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called...
And we'll be speaking about wars, World War I, Civil War, Revolutionary Wars. These are the crises that he speaks upon that were purposely placed upon us in order that we can be a part of our own destruction. It was deception, and the Bible speaks about how all will be deceived.
The period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth,
that sounds familiar. When Jesus was being tempted upon that mountain.
Stabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in the United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion. Only
the education system played a great role, taught us a false history that placed us in the matrix in the land of Oz. And once again, it is only truth, this truth, here on Focus Daily TV. Hit that like button and subscribe. That shall bring us from up under the water that we've been placed in deep, in the trenches, in the depths, like a submarine.
Only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working.
Marxists, Leninists, those are all foreign forms of ideological subversion. They've subverted the entire world. But we'll get a little bit more depth in that. Just stay tuned in to Focus Daily TV. Hit that like button, subscribe, support the channel, hashtag Focus Daily TV.
Against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own
He actually telling you how they did it and how they spread it around the entire world. Pay attention, people.
Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster.
All right. Another episode of Focus Daily TV. Until
There's
next
nothing more
time.
powerful than you
Excuse me.
making your thing happen. Really going.
Until next time, Focus Daily, y'all. Once again, subscribe, hit that like button, hashtag Focus Daily TV. We out.